You're listening to the Childfree Wealth Podcast. We're your hosts, Bri and Dr. J, certified financial planner. Here we discuss life and finances as it relates to being child-free. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult your advisor before implementing any ideas heard on this podcast.
Hey, Childfree Wealth listeners. Today is going to be a little different. We're going to do an episode all about Bri. All about being a Childfree Wealth Specialist or whatever it is. It's about Bri and being a Childfree Wealth Specialist, I think is what we're going to do. So we're going to put Bri in the hot seat. We're going to put her through her paces here. She has been working with me for about the last year and training to become what we call a Childfree Wealth Specialist. She's also learning to become a certified financial planner. But she's going to start taking her own clients first of the year. So probably by the time you listen to this. And I thought it would be fun to go inside Bri's brain. How about that? What do you think, Bri?
That's a scary place. Be careful what you wish for.
We'll go there. But so just to give you a little behind the scenes, Bri has been working for the past year as a paraplanner, which is someone who helps a financial planner through the process. She's now going to start taking her own clients as what we call a Childfree Wealth Specialist. And that's someone who we have trained on the specific weirdnesses, I guess, or the different ways of looking at it, of child-free financial planning. So, Bri, what's the kind of biggest aha you got this year through that process?
I was not expecting it to be so heavy and emotional. When you think of finance, you think of numbers and just kind of okay, these are the facts. But that is not at all the reality here. There is a lot more of going through, getting to know people and their life. And it's not all numbers all day, every day. It's actually rarely numbers.
Yeah, we call what do we do life and financial planning, but kind of what do you mean the feelings? I know that's your favorite topic or least favorite topic the way I look at it to talk about. But what does that mean?
For a lot of clients, it means talking about, worries and anxieties they have surrounding money and the future and whether or not they're going to be okay, not only themselves, but also taking care of parents or any other family members that may need help from them, and digging into those emotions. How can we build a support system to go ahead and then not only support our clients, but also support the person that they're trying to support as well. And I wasn't ever expecting that to be something we covered.
Yeah, to be honest, most of your success with finances is your behaviors, your emotion, all that put in there. And we get a lot of folks that have kind of kept their head in the sand and just not want to talk about it, not want to address it. And then it comes out. And we've tracked it. About a third of the people in our introductory meetings, we call them consultations, break down in tears or as close as we're going to get. It bothered me for a while when I was realizing so many, but I truly think it's because they feel like they're hurt. They feel like they're understood and feel like they get there. Have you seen that, Bri? What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, there are definitely ones who have broken down before. And I know going into certain meetings, okay, this client is probably going to break down at some point during this meeting. And it's not a bad thing. It's just, I have learned to expect it now. And they can get out the emotions and feelings that they were worried about before as you create a plan. But this stuff isn't always the most fun to talk about, and it can be really difficult. At first, I was like, oh God, I don't like this because I hate talking about feelings. But I'm slowly getting more comfortable with it. And I sent Jay an email the other week and I was like, hey, it was after one of my client meetings. And I said, I'm liking talking about feelings more, which is very surprising for me because I don't like it at all. And I think it's the fact that I just grew up in an environment where people don't talk about feelings. And it tends to be there's a joke that it's very passive aggressive. Nobody will address feelings with one another. They'll just be passive aggressive about them. So I don't like them, but I'm learning to like them. And job has definitely helped.
And we're intentionally trying to make a safe space that, it's okay to talk about the feelings that come with money. We've had one of our best downloaded episodes is about money guilt, whether it's guilt, shame, or, we're not trying to put you through the therapist routine and diagnose you with anything. We're just trying to say, all right, let's unburden you of those feelings and also say, hey, just because you get more money does not mean the feelings get better. A lot of people will say, well, if I hit X dollars, I'll feel comfortable with the money. The answer is no. And, I don't know if you've seen it, Bri, but at least I've seen it. There are times, there's a lot of stuff financially you can do by yourself. People talk about investing. Investing can be really simple. Set it, forget it, let it go. But there's a lot more that you kind of need a third person to, sit there and have the conversation, whether it's with a couple or individuals. And I think that's what we do as Childfree Wealth Specialists is we can sometimes just be a sounding board to go, this is what you want. This is what you say you want. This is what you're doing. Those don't all come together. What do you think?
That is very true. And it's been said in multiple client meetings, hey, this is what you say you want to do, but you're not doing it. We can point that out better than your partner can point that out. Because I know for me, if my wife says something, sometimes it pisses me off a little bit. And I don't like it. But if Jay says it, I tend to listen more. I might still not like it and I might still complain, but it is received better. And it's the same thing with our clients. We can say things that your partner can't or your friends can't say to you.
Yeah, and if you've listened to the podcast, you probably caught that Bri has not only come through this as a employee of Childfree Wealth and learning how to do this, but also her and her wife have been going through financial planning and feeling it from the other side. All right, Bri, which side do you like being on, the client or the Childfree Wealth Specialist?
It depends on the day. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Depends. My meetings are very different than a lot of client meetings. Like, I have to come prepared with all of my stuff, and you just say, what are we talking about? And then I'll say like whatever I think, and you're like, well, why did you do that way? And I have to be able to back up why I'm doing something. So it's more of me having to learn and then go to you and say, is this a good idea or not? Versus not having any sort of idea and just being guided.
Yeah, I think the reality check is all of our clients are focused on people learning. Bri's is probably at a little bit higher level because I expect a bit more out of her. I joke, but it's true that some days I'll pat you on the back, some days I'll kick you in the butt, and I try to rotate between those, and some days it's more one than the other. I think it becomes a balancing act. So, Bri, you've seen our process. I don't know, you probably sort of think 200 meetings? That sound about right?
Yeah, at least probably.
A couple hundred meetings with clients. What do you think's like the common theme between all of them?
Between all of them, I don't think there's a common theme between all of them. They're all very, very different. Okay, now it's one of those surface versus structure things I can hear going through your brain. A lot of it is focused on making sure clients either fall into one or two categories. They want to make sure they're set and good, or they're coming to us worried about things for themselves, but also really worried about things for whoever else they're taking care of. But there's a lot of heart in every meeting. I guess that's the best theme I could say.
Well, I wasn't trying to trick you there, but it's interesting. Our clients, no two financial plans look the same. Because we serve child-free folks. The only parents we take on as clients are parents who are child-free folks. And the standard financial plan, a parent's financial plan, is very similar meeting to meeting. Ours is not. And I think that's a challenge in itself. Our focus becomes more about asking the right questions, having the conversations, working it through. We take people through our 8 no baby steps, work through the process. I think the challenge is it's very common with our clients to say, okay, I want this goal. And you're like, okay, cool. And then we get to a point and they're like, nope, I want a different goal. And you're like, all right, we're going to go there too. Or, well, I want to go in a different direction. And to the point where some days we can't even guess where people are going. The hard part is if a client comes to us and says, I don't know where I want to go with my money or what my goals are or what I want to do with my finances, I can't really make a plan. And I think you start diving into people and saying, all right, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And where do you want to go? And what do you want to do? That's all part of our process. Now, at the same time as you were learning to becoming a Childfree Wealth Specialist, you're finishing your education to become a certified financial planner. Did you see that there, or is it different?
No, I have not seen that. It is very The education for that is a lot more technical and like, you need to know what this stands for. Yesterday, I spent 3 hours at the library reading about insurance and the different categories of insurance and what they cover and they don't. So that it's a lot more technical and it doesn't really leave any room for feelings or figuring out what the person wants. It's just follow this plan and you'll be good.
Yeah. And I think the other part of it is the CFP is much more linear, kind of like you do this and that. And it's a very simple process that doesn't necessarily match life. So when you're looking for a financial planner or somebody to help you with their finances, you want to make sure they understand who you are. We specifically work with child-free folks. If you're still debating having kids, we're probably not the right people for you. We call Childfree Wealth Specialists for a reason. I think the hard part of that is that we don't have a book on, the best child-free financial planning yet. Working on that. But, that's where the only way to learn this is literally through hundreds and hundreds of client meetings and work through the process. And to give you a little feel for what that looks like behind the scenes, each meeting, Bri and I meet before the meeting. We review what is going on with the client. We're actually we usually start with about 3 things that we're going to cover in the meeting. By the way, we never get to all 3. It's kind of like, we have an idea. They bring a couple of things. We see where it goes. We go through the meeting and then we have a debrief after of kind of what worked, what didn't, and what would you do differently. So now I'm going to ask Bri the question. So she's now become a Childfree Wealth Specialist, been through the whole process. For the overall process, Bri, the last year you spent with me, what worked, what didn't, what would you do differently?
What worked was going through and just sitting in meetings and doing the reps. Though I hate it. Absolutely hated it. But the first time you said, okay, what are we covering? You have 5 minutes to figure it out. That scared the hell out of me. But I figured it out. I was like, okay, here's 3 things that we can go over in this meeting. And it changes how I take notes now. And it changes what I detail. All of those things. That way we can be more prepared for the next meeting and just have more information about different topics on our clients. But also it's really good to have that agenda to go into the meetings. And it was terrifying to have to figure it out in 5 minutes initially, but now I can be like, oh, okay, boom, here we go. So it's a lot. I learned a lot quicker. And as I took my Series 65 earlier, now I'm doing my CFP. It's easier for me to learn things when I'm doing them in meetings versus just reading the book. So maybe what I would do differently is potentially we have like themes for different months, matching those to the courses that I'm doing for my CFP, potentially matching those up a little bit, because then it's easier to learn it as I'm going through like insurance when we're talking about insurance, which that just happens to work out. Or taxes when we're doing taxes. Those things I think would be easier to do.
I'd love if all our clients would follow our schedule and everybody talks about estate planning on a certain month and everybody talks about tax planning a certain, but life just never goes that way. I mean, no, we have, just behind the scenes, we have actually a schedule of different things to talk about across the entire year because there's different things. And like, for example, end of the year tax planning, there's things you have to do at the end of the year to make sure you get it done before the calendar changes. But then like somebody's life will change and like, oh, by the way, my mother just had this surgery and I got to go take care of her for the next 6 months. And it shifts our priorities. And that's intentional. We give up on our structure for clients to work through theirs. Now, as you're going through the process, I think the challenge becomes people get to a point where they're like, all right, what do I do next? And like, or if you ask clients what to focus on and they go, I don't know. Where do you start with them?
First, it really depends on where they're at in their 8 No Baby Steps. Those can help provide guidance and as far as the financials go. But then for life, Kinder's 3 life questions are really helpful to give people an idea of potential next steps they can take, get them thinking about what they want out of life, because that's a question that is so often skipped over. But it does take a while to figure out. And sometimes that comes in the form of a sabbatical or a job change, and giving them the opportunity to consider taking those, but also building a financial plan that allows them the finances to do that, because that can be difficult if you don't have a plan for it. But I think a lot of people need it.
Yeah, we meet with our clients each month for an hour, with an hour of work that's offline by us beforehand or after. And we try to accomplish 1 to 2 things each meeting. And sometimes the big questions like, goals, all that, people don't know. We give them things to think about. We'll also do the other part of it is housekeeping, just kind of like cleaning up the accounts. I've got 401ks that I have to roll over to my IRA, or I got to move this. Do I have my insurance set up right? And it's funny. I have some clients that will love the housekeeping stuff because it just puts aside the big picture stuff. So we don't have to talk about it. And then you got to push them back and be like, hey, so now we've done the homework. Now we need to work on the bigger picture stuff. And it becomes a balance. I don't know. I'm probably a bit more direct sometimes, or I don't know. Who do you think's more direct, you or I, with clients? I mean, we have different styles, and that's okay.
It depends. I think you can be a bit more direct. I have to be selectively direct.
Why?
Because I am younger than a lot of our clients, and I don't.
Are you just saying I'm old? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying you're old. You're closer to their age, and I am younger, and it's not always received as well when somebody younger is telling you to get something done.
That's fair. So, all right, what's your ideal client look like? Now, by the way, little kind of reality check. Bri can only handle about 30 clients. So we got to find the 30 people that would like to work with her and the best. Now, she'll serve everybody, but who's your favorite?
Who's my favorite? That's a hard.
What
question.
Type of clients do you like working with best?
I really like women and couples. I would say that is kind of my favorite. I love couples because I like when somebody will say something and that they're full of BS, and the other one will make a face. So you can kind of call it out and play between the two of them. That's really fun. Probably 30 in their 30s, early 40s. Couples are my favorite to work with.
And what's your favorite topics to cover? By the way, covers everything. And I think our process now is 120 odd topics, but you pick your favorites.
Estate planning, caring for parents, and investing. Those are my top 3.
Okay, estate planning, care for parents. Those are the sad stuff at the end. But all right,
okay, but to me, it's not sad. Yes, it's hard, but it's the greatest act of love you could ever do is by having that done.
That's fair. And investments, by the way, everybody loves doing investments because let's talk about our money growing. I mean, can't beat it. And all right, so I made you pick your favorite topics. What's your least favorite topics?
Taxes.
Nobody loves tax.
I know.
Wow. So we're recording this. It's November, and I'm doing all the end of year tax planning with people, and my brain is just ready to explode on some of this tax stuff. But you're right, Bri. That's not the fun stuff. But man, I mean, I've seen some clients this year that we probably saved them 6 figures worth of taxes by doing some tax planning, and that's not an exaggeration.
Easily, yeah. Taxes just suck. Okay, I get the point of them, but I don't think it's always used wisely, and that's what irritates me.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we don't do tax filing, so we don't actually here, let me fill out your 1040 like you would, an HR block. No, we don't do that. We do tax planning. We're so how do we pay the least amount of taxes at the right time? The right types of taxes. We have a separate episode on tax planning. We can get into that, but we don't go, hey, by the way, here's how you can take your money overseas and not pay your taxes. No, we're all staying within the rules, but should I do a Roth or traditional and an HSA? And how do I set this up? And those are huge topics.
They're very big and very important, and nobody likes to pay taxes. Well, some people like to pay taxes. It just depends. But having more control over when you pay your taxes and looking to save money paying taxes can be helpful, and a lot of people enjoy it. It's just taxes are frustrating.
Here's the thing. finances itself, I believe the way to make finance accessible is to use humor, humility, and vulnerability. And if you haven't seen that in the podcast, you probably haven't listened enough. We'll share our stuff, we'll share our stories. We'll share what we're going through. And literally, I'm having to push Bri through all the vulnerability of talking about like learning how to do this stuff over the past year. And then she gets put out and she starts working with her own clients. It's tough to put yourself out there. And the way we do it is after each meeting, the session's recorded. I go through and review the sessions. Now, I don't do it every session, but every session for now, then give Bri feedback and say, hey, here's what worked, here's what didn't, here's what to do differently next time. What's that process like for you?
It's pretty good. I kind of get irritated when your emails are short. I'm like,
if I give you less feedback?
Yeah, that annoys me. I'm like, no, I want more, please.
By the way, if you want to see something painful, I'll put in the email. Rewatch from minute 4 to minute 7. If you ever have to rewatch yourself doing stuff with clients, like it is painful to go, did I really just say that? Did I really just do that?
Oh, that sucks more than anything. That just sucks.
Yeah. But that's part of what we're doing is we're doing a constant improvement process and saying what worked, what didn't. I do it with all my clients. Hey, I could have done this better. Now, by the way, I bet you talk to our clients, they all probably loved the session, didn't think about at minute 4, I asked a weird question. But that's what we're doing is we're down into that and saying, I'll give you an example of this. I was reviewing a video for Bri and the client said, blah, blah, blah is a concern. And then Bri's like, oh, so you like to travel? And I'm like, wait a minute, Bri, you ignored that the client just said. Now, by the way, what it was Bri was connecting to goals in the bigger picture. And I'm like, you got back to it in the end, but the client gave you a clue. And that's part of our normal process.
Yeah, that was like one of my very first meetings. And that, oh, God, I'm like, oh, you're right. That was a mess up on my part.
Yeah. And by the way, we're not talking about, hey, I messed up the finances stuff or anything like that. It's a style thing. It's communication. But we work hard to make sure our clients get their money's worth, really, but also make the improvements we want to see.
Yeah. And when you afterwards, you're like, scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think you did? And how well do you think the client, what would the client rate the value? And one day you gave me like a 7 and I was like, no, 5 at best. That was awful.
And I'm willing to bet if I asked the client, they would have said a 9 or 10. I mean, so we hold ourselves to a high standard, but that's okay. Now, just kind of a little behind the scenes on this. I told you we meet with the clients on a monthly basis, but what we start with is a free introductory meeting. It's an hour on Zoom. You get to know Bri, you get to work through it and see what fits and what doesn't. And Bri is starting to take people signing up for that. There's a link in the notes. You go to our website and get to it either way. And you get a chance to sit down with Bri. She gets to talk to you. You get to talk to her, test each other out, and see if it's a good fit. So, Bri, how do you know if a client's a good fit? I mean, because I'll be honest, we don't take all clients. For example, we don't take people that have cross-border issues, different countries. We don't take people that are parents unless, it's one of our parents of our child-free folks. And sometimes it's just not a right fit. But Bri, how do you know if the client's the right fit and somebody you would enjoy to work with?
I think a lot of it is a gut feeling. Like, you just kind of know after talking to somebody for a while whether or not it would work. There are some people, it's like, yes, this could work, but I don't think that they're actually ready to dive into this. Other people, it's like, oh yeah, they're definitely ready. They definitely want to dive in and get going. You can see the enthusiasm, different levels of enthusiasm. Sometimes people are more reserved, which is how I tend to be as a person. And those are difficult because you don't know how you did and whether or not they had enjoyed the conversation or not. And those are a little nerve-wracking. But I also know I'm that same way during most things. In fact, I kind of come off as a little scary, according to my wife. So those ones can be hard. But
Wait,
usually
how do you come off as scary? Hold on, I can't go past that. Like, what am I missing here?
Because I just tend to not say a lot during things. Like earlier this week, my wife said something and she goes, "You literally pride yourself on not giving information to people." I was like, well, because I just don't like to keep, this is the most open I ever am. If anybody wants to hear about my life, they're going to need to come to this podcast because this is the most open. Otherwise, I don't tell people in my life when I'm doing things. I just kind of do them and rarely say anything. And I just tend to be reserved about most of my moves in life. And so I think that's a little nerve-wracking.
That's fair. And I'm somewhat the same. I think the reality check with our clients is some of the best things we can do is just shut up and listen. And like, there will be times like Bri actually told, so Rob's a new member on our team and you'll get to meet him in a future podcast. So literally told Rob, nope, Jay's not frozen. He's just sitting there listening.
Yeah. Yeah. I did tell him that.
It's hard. Like sometimes you just got to shut up and listen. I think the other part of it is, it's hard to sing your own praises. I personally think you're going to do phenomenally as a Childfree Wealth Specialist. I'm trusting you with clients that, I think you are way ahead of most folks in the financial planning world, especially when it comes to child-free things. Are you perfect? Nope, I'm not either. We'll mess up. We learn, we grow. That's part of what we're doing. It's just a matter of being open enough to say, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm working through it too. We do have finances a lot on the podcast. Like, yep, my problem is Amazon. I might have bought a little too much from Amazon recently on it because we're just after Cyber Monday. But we all have our issues. We just need a safe space to talk about them and work it through. So if you're interested at all, hit the link, get on Bri's schedule. I will tell you, she's got limited space. So the way it works is essentially your schedule opens up every month, for the next month. So if you can't get in this month, you can try again in a little bit and get on the next month. But you've got a great opportunity to meet with somebody who's awesome, which is Bri, and dig into your finances. And by the way, the hours cost you nothing. I will say the hardest thing is making the appointment. It's kind of like the workout. The hardest thing is tying your shoes and just getting ready to do the workout. It's just hitting send and doing that. I think what I found with clients is they'll do the intro meeting and either they'll sign up as a client about a week later or about a year later. And the difference is motivation. Once you get going and start working your finances, it's pretty good. It's just those first couple steps. So your first step is hit the link, sign up with Bri, grab an hour with her. And then if it works, great. We'll sign up. If not, we're not going to chase you down. We're not like salespeople. We're, technically we're advice only, fee only fiduciaries. That means we get paid for our time. We don't sell you any products. We don't, hey, you should buy this insurance because we're getting commission. Nope, don't do any of that. We're not doing the high-V sales pitch. It is, if it works for you, great. If not, have a great day. That's about it, which people may not be used to. We've also had people that have had other financial planners and say what we do is completely different. And that's probably true in most cases because we're talking about your life, finances, and all that together. If you've liked listening to Bri on the podcast, you'll love her as your Childfree Wealth Specialist.
That's all for this week's episode of Childfree Wealth Podcast. Be sure to follow Childfree Wealth on social media, email us at podcast@childfreewealth.com, or visit our website, www.childfreewealth.com.